My name is Mary Urban, if you haven't found that out yet, and as president of the Lehigh County League, I welcome you along with our board and our members to our second candidate event of this election season. This event does not happen without the help of many members and board members who worked on questions, booking locations, communication with candidates, press releases, organizing audience questions, and all that goes into creating a successful candidate event. I just want to recognize board members and members. Terry Purdy, who is our special projects, just raise your hand, special projects director. Michelle Robner, who does the morning call voters guide. Raise your hand, Michelle. And she is also our videographer for tonight. Rochelle Kaplan, she is our our secretary, and she's also on the board of the State League as the voter services director. We have Bart Connolly, she's in the back, she'll be reviewing your questions along with a few others. She is our director of voter services and community outreach. Molly Faust, raise your hand. She is our past president, and she is on the state committee for our diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. Donna and Charles Barker, our director of distribution. That's the word. Every time we do the government directory, we do the morning call voters guide, they have developed a list of efficient places where they should be dropped off so that we can reach most citizens in the Lehigh Valley. Okay, I also want to thank Rick Doherty, who's not here tonight, but he runs the Lehigh Valley Active Center, and he graciously opened his doors for us and prepared this room. It looks really nice. Also tonight, this is something new we're adding. We're very excited about it. We have 3 students from the Allentown School District. We have Adriana Rodriguez, raise your hand. Jaylee Baez and Tehan Johnson. They're here tonight to ask each of the candidates a question. They've been working on them for 2 days, and when they do ask the questions, I hope you appreciate the thought that went into them. They are accompanied by their teacher, Mr. Jay Perez. Okay, you will see that there are index cards in the back, and the members that I just mentioned have index cards with them. If you want to ask a question, raise your hand. They will deliver a card to you, collect them. They will take them in the back and review them. What we review them for are a few things. First of all, repetition. We don't want to be asking the same question. Second of all, to make sure that they are, let's say, not mean, not gotcha questions. This is a friendly night of explaining views for each candidate. So they will take your cards and they'll review them. But please make it legible so they know, and I promise we will try very hard to get to as many questions as we can. Today I was at the debate between Susan Wild and Lisa Scheller, and 2 women came up to me. One woman came up and said, "Thank you so much for asking her question the other night." And you can guess the other woman came up and said, "You never asked her question." So we try really hard, we really do, because it's important that we hear your voices. Okay, we also have 2 special guests tonight, and we are very proud to introduce you to them. Megan Pierce is the Executive Director of the State League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania, and Sam Anthony is the Associate Director of Membership and Operations, and she keeps everything moving for us, right? Megan would like to speak to the audience tonight about the League, and it's really great hearing from the State Director, so let's give her a warm welcome.
Could you stand on the platform, please? Because we can't see you if you have a video.
You're going to put my chair on the platform, too.
I love this platform. Very tall. Thank you so much, Mary. Thank you to Lehigh League for the invitation to be here tonight. It's such an honor to be with you. My name is Meg Pierce. I am the Executive Director of the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania. Welcome to tonight's debate. So happy to be here. So the League of Women Voters, who we are a statewide, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. We were founded over 100 years ago during the suffrage movement, which demanded that women have access to the ballot because we haven't always had access to the ballot. And the State League oversees a grassroots network of 33 local leagues throughout the Commonwealth, including here in Lehigh County. And our work at the state level is simply not possible without the grassroots activism, education, and advocacy that our local leagues do. So I strongly encourage all of you here tonight to join the Lehigh League of Women Voters. It's your community league, and they do excellent work all throughout the year. This event is one of many they do to ensure that the people of Lehigh County are educated, informed about policies and politicians that work for you. And as we begin our debate tonight, I'd like to briefly speak to the hyper-partisan times that we're living in. The League is a nonpartisan organization, and we always have been. We do not endorse candidates for office. We do not give money to campaigns. We do not say that one party is better for Pennsylvania than another. However, being nonpartisan does not mean that we are apolitical. It does not mean that we sit by or refuse to engage in dialogue or refuse to enter the political arena. What it does mean is that League members study, discuss, and endorse policies that align with our mission and values. We encourage all Pennsylvanians to research their candidates and their positions, then make the choices that align with their beliefs, whatever they are. This is how we as an organization understand civic engagement, and we encourage all voters to do the same. That is how democracy is supposed to work. Sadly, we're witnessing a trend across the Commonwealth of some candidates refusing to participate in nonpartisan debates, forums, community events, and even if they're organized by nonpartisan organizations like the League. Voters like you have the right to understand, research, and ask questions of their lawmakers and candidates and decide from there how you'll vote. That is why candidate debates like this one are so important. I applaud tonight's candidates, Representative Schweyer and Mr. Labenberg, for saying yes to this opportunity, which will not only allow you to reach more voters, but also give you the opportunity to speak to your priorities should you be elected. Debates, candidate guides, public events like this one are how we make democracy work for all voters, no matter their party affiliation. And finally, I'm here representing the League tonight because we believe in voting locally in elections like this one, in voting every year, twice a year. And I acknowledge all of you for showing up to this event. By educating and informing yourself on the position of your candidates, you can make the most informed choice at the polls. Thank you again for joining us tonight. And if anyone is interested in learning more about the League or even registering to vote, we have a table over here and we'd be happy to talk to you after the event. Thanks.
Want me to stand up here too? It's going to make me really tall. Okay. Thank you, Megan. Those are very wise words, and I hope that everyone listens and understands what we're all about. Most of all tonight, I want to thank our candidates, Republican Brent Labenberg of Emmaus and Representative Peter Schweyer, Democrat of Allentown. We're very happy they accepted our invitation tonight. This takes courage, it takes responsibility, and it takes time to prepare. So we thank you both, and we wish you both the best. In order to make our candidates' job easier here tonight, we want you to hold any applause, comments, whatever, until the end when they make their closing statements. Then you can cheer all you want. But right now, let's keep it quiet, let them think, let them answer, and we'll be able to get through this much faster. Okay, one other thing I wanted to say, when I introduced Connie is from Bucks County League, and we have worked very hard with the Bucks County League, and we just want to let the people know we worked very hard since July to try to get a debate for the 16th Senate District. And we could not get one of the candidates to agree. We thought it was very important since there's no incumbent, it's a newly drawn district, and our fear is that people don't really know either candidate very well. So that's why what Meg said is so important. We're trying to get everyone out to talk to you, the people, so that you can ask questions, you can hear the questions we've developed, and make up your mind. Okay, now, let me introduce Connie. She comes to us from Bucks County. She joined the League in the early 1980s in Pittsburgh, where she served as voter editor in the days of mimeographing, which I have to say I remember when I first started teaching. We'd hand out papers to the kids, and what was the first thing they would do?
Smell it.
Smell it. She moved to Bucks County in 1986 and joined the Doylestown League, which later linked with other leagues and became the Bucks County League. She has held various roles as the past president, director of the Speakers Bureau, vast experience in organizing candidate debates and forums, and on the board as director of voter services overseeing election activities. Connie will go over the rules and then begin the debate. Please give a warm welcome to Connie Borchevsky, our moderator for tonight.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. I'm happy to be here representing the Bucks County League. So I am the impartial moderator, as I say. I live in Doylestown, so I don't vote in this district. So I don't have a dog in this race. The candidates have accepted our invitation tonight and to inform you of their views on the issues. They have agreed to the format and the rules, which I'll explain. Speaking order was chosen by lot. At first, each candidate will give a 2-minute opening statement, and each question that they are answering, they'll get 90 seconds to answer each question after that. The questions focus solely on issues, and league members, as Mary said, will be screening the questions and bringing them up to me from the audience. And then also we'll have our 3 Allentown High School students come and ask a question as well during the evening. So if you write a question down, make sure you write it clearly, because if I can't read a question, I can't answer it. I can't ask it. After the questioning period is over, they'll then have a 2-minute closing statement. So for your part, as Mary said, we want it to be productive and civil discourse. We'll need your cooperation from withholding your applause or any reactions until the end. So please silence your cell phones now. Turn off all your electronic devices, and I will introduce the candidates, except that I have it here somewhere. Your state representative, Peter Schweyer of Allentown, has spent the last 8 years representing parts of Allentown and Harrisburg. However, the redistricting process moved his home out of his 22nd district into the 134th district. Before being elected to the State House, Schweyer, 44 of Allentown, served on city council for 6 years, including a stint as council president, and worked as a staffer for several state legislators. Mr. Schweyer. This is Mr. Labenberg. He's 57 of Emmaus. He owns and operates DJ Dutch, a disc jockey service, and has served on the Emmaus Council for 25 years, including 7 years as council president. He served in the Navy from 1983 to 1987, was honorably discharged at the rank of Petty Officer 2nd class. He said he plans to serve no more than 2 terms if elected and would not seek a state pension.
I think your mic needs to be up a little higher. There.
There you go.
So we're now?
Yes.
Perfect.
All right. First question.
I believe Brent goes first for the opening statement.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, opening statement. Brent will be giving the first opening statement for 2 minutes of your time.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for having us here tonight. I really appreciate it. Just a little background on myself. All 4 of my grandparents are Pennsylvania Dutch. They spoke Pennsylvania Dutch. I have pride in that. I'm 5th generation from the borough of Emmaus on my mom's side. 57, married to my wife Paulette for 27 years. We had 3 children. They were all homeschooled. Drew is 26, graduated from Kutztown University with an environmental science degree. He's in the Army National Guard and is a geospatial engineer. He currently works for an engineering firm in Emmaus. Darren's 25, graduated from Elizabethtown with an engineering degree, and he married his college sweetheart, Jackie He's over there taking a picture of me now, and he works for Lutron here in the Lehigh Valley. And then Delana, my daughter, she graduated high school at 16. She went to Antonelli Institute of Photography School in Philadelphia, and graduated at 18. So there's a little history of my family. My history, I graduated from Emmaus in 1983. I'm a Navy veteran, as they said earlier. I was on the USS Forrestal, an aircraft carrier. I served 4 years. I retired from the Phoebe home. I was a chef there for 33 years. I retired last June. I worked 3 jobs my whole life, so I know what it's like to struggle. I own my own disc jockey business. I owned it for 35 years now. I'm currently on the Borough Council 25 years. The last 7 years I've been council president. And just a little bit about myself. I'm an avid newspaper reader, not writer. I'm a trail runner. I love trail running. In April, I did a 10-hour endurance run. I ran 40 miles in 9 hours and 39 minutes. And I did that mostly in mud because it rained 3 inches the day before. I love my high school sports. I follow the Emmaus Green Hornets, especially football and basketball. And I do a large vegetable garden every year. And I love hiking with my wife, and I look forward to answering any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm perfectly fine if you want to plug for opening statements. I don't think anybody's going to. Listen.
Yeah, it's better.
I went to Catholic school. We have a lot of rules, but I'm used to it. It's fine. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Peter Schweyer. I'm state representative, and I've had the unique honor and privilege to serve my hometown as both state representative and as a member of city council for the last 14 years. And I'm a 6th generation Allentown kid. My children are 7th generation Allentown students, and both of them are Allentown children. And both of them are students in the Allentown School District. It's a fact that I'm extraordinarily proud of. I've had the unique opportunity of representing my hometown for, like I said, the last 14 years. And this job is kind of really cool. Because most people get up in the morning, and when they're not thinking about their families or their work or their interests or their hobbies, they're thinking about ways that they can improve their community, right? Like, we all know that folks will say things like, well, if we could only do this in our schools, we could only fix that pothole. If we could only do things to make our downtown a better place, or if we could only do things to make our community a little bit safer, our town would be a better place. Well, not only for the last 14 years have I thought about those things, just like folks do in every kitchen table in Allentown, Emmaus, and Salisbury, but I've been charged and with the responsibility to deliver upon that. And if you're a downtown Allentown kid like I was born and raised, I say 10th and Chew, but I really lived in 9 places by the time I was 18 years old. But the majority of that time was in and around 10th and Chew, 1022 Street, 954 Chew Street, etc. You know that our downtown is dramatically different than it was 15 years ago. Our downtown is a place where we have new investment, new jobs, and people are coming to on a regular basis. You know that we've had new investment in public safety. We just broke ground on a brand new fire safety academy over on the south side, right behind Mack trucks. We bought new fire trucks, we've invested in our police department. You know that, most importantly, the Allentown School District and all of our school districts, which had a devastatingly cut of 25% of our teachers in the years before I was elected, has had the opportunity to have those teachers replaced and greater investment in our schools. It's something that I'm incredibly proud of to be a state representative, and I appreciate the opportunity to join you tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. The first question will be about the elections, and the first question will go to Peter. Voter turnout for primary elections is substantially lower than for general elections. Do you support or oppose placing prospective constitutional amendments on the ballot during primary elections when there is only about a 20 or 22% voter turnout? Yes or no?
No. Simply stated, I don't. The overwhelming majority of our independent voters don't realize that if they vote for, that they can come and vote for a constitutional amendment on a primary ballot. So a whole swath of voters in Pennsylvania, not just here in Lehigh Valley, but across Pennsylvania, genuinely believe that they can't vote on primary election day, even if there is a constitutional amendment for which they are actually entitled to vote. And so it seems to me that it is a mechanism by folks to try to to determine the result of the election prior to, or determine the result of that ballot initiative prior to. But let me just say something else. Our primary elections have extraordinarily low turnout for a whole host of reasons. Not the least is because independents, like I just mentioned, can't vote. I support open primaries in Pennsylvania. I believe unaffiliated voters and independents should have the opportunity to cast a ballot for the person that they choose, and whether it's a primary election or a general election. I will readily admit this is a place that I've evolved to in the last 8 years, but it's something that I do absolutely believe in right now. But because we basically have 2 elections in Pennsylvania, primary and general election, and we should do everything we can to get as much voter turnout as is humanly possible.
Thank you. Right?
I don't have a problem with it if it's in the primary or in a general election. It should be publicized, and it's the voters' responsibility to be educated on the issues. So I don't have a problem with it as long as it's publicized properly.
Thank you. Next question. This question will go to Brent first. Early canvassing, which occurs in most states, is an opportunity for county voting officers to begin counting mail-in and absentee ballots before Election Day. What are your thoughts? Would you oppose or support early canvassing? Brent.
Support.
Thank you.
You have like 1:45 left. You're welcome to use it. We're going to talk about property taxes or anything. Anyway, I also support early canvassing, and we have. I was very proud to support the vote by mail election laws in Pennsylvania. I just want to point out, even though it's become kind of a partisan cudgel at this point in time, vote by mail was actually authored by the Republican Speaker of House in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I was one of those Democrats that crossed party aisles to support this bipartisan initiative that was primarily authored by a Republican who's now our Speaker of the House. There are holes in that, and there are 2 that I want to talk about very briefly. One of them is pre-canvassing. So I absolutely support changing our state laws so that our elections officials in all 67 counties have the opportunity to simply open the ballots and get them prepared so that Election Day we can start counting the votes. And the second thing that we absolutely need to do is eliminate the spouse loophole. You know, the fact that a husband can't take his wife's ballot or vice versa can't take a ballot to a drop-off is just absolutely absurd. You know, our district attorney here in Lehigh County made the very wise decision to not prosecute the thousands of people that voted this way. And so there are things that we need to do to update our election laws, and there are things that we need to do to update vote by mail specifically. But on the whole, I was proud to have supported the vote by mail law, and I will continue to defend it.
Thank you. Next question will go to Peter first. Many legislators from both parties have put forth resolutions on increasing the minimum wage from $7.25, which has not been increased for over 10 years. What would be your specific plan in dealing with the present minimum wage?
Since the moment I was elected, I've supported a minimum wage increase. And I support a minimum wage increase to $15 an hour at this point in time. And the reason is manifold. Think about what we ask a person to do. You get up every day and you go to work and you come home and you have to pay your rent or you pay your mortgage. If you don't have health insurance, and even if you're on the Penny program, or otherwise known as the Affordable Care Act, Penny is the Pennsylvania version of it, you have to pay the part of your health insurance that isn't subsidized. You got to put food on your table. You got to pay your electric bill. You got to pay your gas bill. You got to pay if you don't use mass transit. You're paying for your car, your insurance. If you have children, you're paying for clothes on their back. We also are cutting entitlements all over the place, and the odds that Social Security is going to be robust when I graduate, let alone when these 3 young people to my left graduate, is probably slim. So we're asking you to support to start saving for your retirement. We're asking people to do that on 7.25 an hour. It is just absolutely laughable. We are the only state in this region of the United States that has not raised its minimum wage. The leftist bastion of Ohio, which is not a leftist bastion by any stretch of imagination, has a higher minimum wage than Pennsylvania does. It is shameful. And for the number of young people who get up and go to work every day and are saving for college, like I did when I put myself through college, to say that somehow, some way, their labor, their work is somehow, some way worth less than everybody else's is shameful. Minimum wage needs to go up, and it needs to go up right now.
Thank you. Brent?
I think the minimum wage is a non-issue because $7.25, you find me one person that's paying somebody $7.25. There's nobody doing it. In the borough of Emmaus, we can't find workers for under $10 an hour. And we have wage inflation right now. The reason we have wage inflation is because the box stores are creating our own minimum wage because they pay $15, Target, Walmart, $15 to $18 actually to start. Walmart, Home Depot, any of those stores, they all start $15 to $18 an hour. We do not need to put a minimum wage. What you'll do is you'll eliminate teenage jobs or senior citizen part-time jobs because what they'll do is what restaurants are starting to do, they'll just automate and then they eliminate the jobs because they'd rather do that than pay somebody $15 an hour. And nobody stays at a minimum wage. You work and you, in a year, 6 months, your probation period's up, you get a raise. You get yearly raises. You don't stay there. And a lot of these jobs are tasks that are labor or you don't need an education for it. So, you know, you learn the task, you show up for work, and you show that you can do that, and you move up the chain, and you know, someday you could be the manager of the store. So that's the way I feel.
Thank you. Next question will go to you first, Brent.
Okay.
What specific improvements to public transportation in the Lehigh Valley are needed, and how would you support their implementation? And do you support rail lines to either Philadelphia and or New York? Explain.
I'll answer the rail lines first. I think actually going to Philadelphia is the easier route and the cheaper route. The more expensive route is to New York, and we're talking, if I understand it correctly, it's going to be at least 10, 15 years out till they get all the lines and the properties and stuff. But if the funding's there, I would support it, but it is quite expensive. And what was the first part of the question? I'm sorry. Transportation.
What specific improvements to public transportation in the Lehigh Valley are needed, and how will you support their implementation?
Well, we've been upgrading our airport, so I think the airport is upgraded to where it needs to be. As far as busing, I think we have a good company in the Lehigh Valley and gets people to work. So as far as transportation, I think we're all right with that. I mean, you can always improve routes or increase routes, but I think we're all right with that.
Thank you.
Well, I'll never miss an opportunity to thank my my opponent for multiple compliments. Regarding the airport authority, I was one of the legislators that sponsored millions of dollars of state money going to improve our airport, and so thank you for the compliment, Brent. Thank you for your second compliment about Lanta, because I spent 13 years on the board of directors for Lanta, multiple years as chair, and in fact, I was actually at the time the youngest person to ever chair the board of directors for Lanta. And in fact, there's a woman here tonight who replaced me on the Lanta board, Shayla Alvarado, who I think would appreciate your compliment as well, sir. And so our mass transit system is underfunded. The number of people that get up and use that system to go to work is tremendous, but we absolutely need to do more investment. In the areas in and around Emmaus, for example, we aren't doing enough to do what's called flex service, and I don't want to get too nerdy. I did this for 13 years, so I become a real nerd real quick, but I don't want to do that. But some key things that we have done with Lanta that I think are very important, two of them in particular. Number one, every Allentown school student has the opportunity to ride Lanta for free. Michelle, I want to thank you because your leadership on the board was instrumental in making that happen. When I was on the board, we did $1 rides, but they were able to take it down, which has just been so incredibly helpful for a district that doesn't have busing. And the second thing that we've done that I'm super proud of is continue to transition our fleet to lower carbon emissions. When I was on the board, we had hybrid buses, and now they're moving to CNG with an ultimate goal to be carbon free in the next, I think, 5 or 10 years. So thank you very much for that question.
Thank you. The next question will come to you first.
Sure.
According to the Penn Environment Research and Policy Center, the Lehigh Valley has the 7th worst air quality out of 28 urban areas and rural counties in Pennsylvania. What would be your practical recommendations on how to address air quality in the Lehigh Valley?
Air quality isn't one of those questions that is in the abstract. This isn't something for a bunch of nerds to sit around and talk about in the abstract. Air quality impacts kids' asthma. It impacts things like particulate matter can sometimes cause cancer in individuals. This is real life stuff that's impacting the lives of everyone, from my mother, my 70-year-old mother, to my 11-year-old daughter, and everybody in between. And so prior to my election, I actually worked for Sacred Heart Hospital. And we looked at asthma studies, and asthma was a particularly acute problem in our urban core. And the reason why is, frankly, there are too many cars and not enough, and going back to the question about mass transit, not enough buses. There's just too many old cars in downtown Allentown. For anybody who lives in Allentown, you know that people aren't driving a lot of Teslas down there, right? There's a lot of clunkers, and they're spewing stuff. So moving more and more to things like electric vehicles in an affordable manner is going to be extraordinarily important, particularly for our poorer communities. But that's not all. We have to look across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I was one of the prime authors of community solar legislation, which gives folks the opportunity, and I see Catherine Hoffman here, we literally just talked about this 2 days ago in my office. Folks that have row homes, people that are in apartments who want to own their own solar can't actually do so right now. Can't put a bunch of solar panels on your apartment over at Bridgeview Apartments, right? So the way around that is by investing in community solar and creating community solar legislation. I think we're close to doing it, and it'll have a dramatic impact on air quality.
Thank you.
Increasing local ordinances for zoning to allow the solar panels would be a big help, because not all municipalities are prepared for that. Most of the, if you want to call it smog, comes from the emissions of cars, and as we slowly convert over to electric vehicles, that will increase the quality of the air in the Lehigh Valley. So as far as programs or government regulations, I would not be in favor of anything drastic in that direction.
Thank you. This question will come to you first, Brent. The Pennsylvania Capital Star reports that Pennsylvania remains the only state in the Northeast region without basic LGBTQ+ civil rights protections guaranteed by law, according to the Movement Advancement Project. 9 states, from Vermont to Maryland and DC, have laws on the books protecting against discrimination in employment and housing and other civil rights. If elected, where would you stand on this issue of creating a law protecting the civil rights of LGBTQ Pennsylvanians?
I support the Fairness Act. That pretty much covers it.
Thank you. Peter.
So when I was on city council, we were one of the first cities in the municipalities in the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to enact domestic partner benefits. This was prior to the decision that legalized same-sex marriage. Now we see a radicalized Supreme Court that is starting to erode those very freedoms that we've talked about in some cases for the last 50 years. And I'm fairly confident we'll get a question about choice later on today. But we've seen in the Dobbs decision that the Supreme Court is thinking about taking away the right to marry. Now, the legislation that Brent referred to is something that I strongly support. It's also something that has been blocked for the last 15 years by the Republican-controlled legislature. You can't separate politics from politics. And our Pennsylvania State House has been controlled by the Republicans since 2010. That's 12 years that they've been in charge. And every single time we have a bipartisan bill, Democrats and Republicans alike have said that we want this vote to happen. And yet each and every year it is stymied by the majority party in both the House and Senate. So it is wonderful, and we need allies. Right? We need allies. I need, as somebody who is an ally and wants to see this happen in so many ways, we need allies to step up and speak that this is no longer acceptable in Pennsylvania. But it's going to take more than that. It's going to take courage from legislators, particularly legislators in current leadership, to actually say, you know what, this is just simply the right thing to do.
Thank you. I'd like to take a little break right now. Not a break, but I'm going to bring our students up from Allentown High School and have them introduce themselves and give their questions. So come on up.
No pressure, guys. You're fine, I promise.
We don't bite.
Lori might,
I
but
might.
microphone, then she doesn't have to take hers off.
Yeah.
You just have to hand it to me now.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jamie Vetbias.
Can you go a little closer? Thank you.
Okay, here. Yeah, perfectly fine. Okay. My name is Jamie Vetbias. I'm a sophomore at Boeing 21 High School, and recently my brother has been denied his rights to have any anger management or mental health problems in his school, and I wanted to know how you guys would be able to help any other students, and like my brother, out with his mental or anger management problems because he is dealing with legal loss since they have denied him issues or any programs.
Is this in school?
So how would you help him out or bring out programs into the public to help other students out, because there are a lot of kids that need help.
Peter's first, I think, for this one.
Whatever you prefer.
Oh, no, Peter's.
Okay. All right, thank you. First and foremost, that is patently unacceptable. That is not something that any of our kids should ever have to experience. Like I said to you guys before, I have a sophomore at William Allen, I have a 6th grader at South Mountain Middle School, I have family members throughout the district, I have friends who go to Emmaus, I have friends whose kids go to Salisbury, and this is the kind of thing that is patently unacceptable in any of our schools. It's not good enough to just say it's not good enough, right? Last year, the legislature approved $100 million of additional money. Now, it's only one-time money, but $100 million of additional money to put more and more behavioral health specialists, not only in our schools, but across our community. The Allentown School District is actually receiving over $350,000 alone from that pot of money to put more and more behavioral health specialists. I was on the phone with a company earlier today, believe it or not, talking about this very issue. The state government has a role and a responsibility to play to continue to partner with our school districts to put more money into our communities for everything for two major reasons. Number one, your brother deserves all of those opportunities. Your brother deserves to have that support that he needs so that he's able to learn and succeed. And every kid in Allentown needs to make sure that their buildings are safe and secure. And so I will continue to fight for additional funding for those things in the school district. Excellent question.
Well, your brother shouldn't have to go through that. I'm sorry to hear that. But it comes down to funding, and there should be a support system, not the opposite of that. And it comes down to funding, and I support more funding for public schools. I have been saying that, going door to door, and I'm letting people know I support more funding for public schools. So, and that would hopefully get funneled into the counseling part of it. So, I wish your brother well.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adriana Rodriguez, also a sophomore at Building 21. When we look out on our representees, we don't see ourselves, our families, or our neighbors, people we look on every day as a society and a group. Could you please tell us about something you have done or will look forward to doing in office to benefit a group that you don't count yourself in, and PA as a whole, so it not only benefits you, but PA as a group altogether?
I believe this is mine. I'll go first. So, well, unfortunately, I don't look at people as being different. I look at people as being the same. I've always been like that, and I treat people the same. And I don't know how to answer that, because I treat people the same, and when I pass a bill or pass an ordinance, I'm going to do it based on how it affects everyone, not just an individual class. So that's how I answer that.
I really appreciate this conversation. I was a super poor kid. Like I said earlier, I lived in 9 places by the time I was 18 years old. My father was an addict, never finished high school. And so whereas I don't look like the face of urban poverty today, I really look like the face of urban poverty when I grew up in the early 1980s. I was born in 1978. And as an Allentown kid, I know who my neighbors are. I know who my daughter's friends are. I know who the folks are that live in our community. And it's not just an Allentown thing. The diversity in Emmaus, the growing diversity in Emmaus, and the growing diversity in Salisbury is real. And it's a beautiful and wonderful thing. Our city would be a ghost town if we wouldn't have the incredible diversity that we have in our community. We wouldn't be, this wonderful lily-like utopia. What we would be is a place where nobody would want to live and invest. I'm very proud of the fact that I have an incredibly diverse staff. I have 2 women here tonight that work in my district office. I want to be clear, they're here on their own volition. Elizabeth Martinez and Shayla Alvarado. In between the 2 of them is Carol Gonzalez, who no longer works for me, only because she decided to retire. Apparently, she decided that in her 70s she was allowed to retire. I'm sorry, Carol, I just shouted out your age. I apologize for that. Yeah, she's going to yell at me later for that. I'm proud of having a robust internship program. The one thing that worked for me as a poor kid downtown was having doors opened up for me by other folks. And I continue to want to pay that forward as much as I possibly can. Our internship program has been incredibly diverse and incredibly successful. It is something that I will continue to do one-on-one basis. It's also something that I will do broadly. I will come and speak with anyone, and I'll always be open and honest about the fact that as a white man, I've had it easier. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tayshawn Johnson. I'm a freshman at Building 21 Allentown High School, and my father is a small business owner in Allentown, Pennsylvania, who has been affected by the rising prices recently. So I was wondering if you have plans, and if so, what are they to assist small businesses when it comes to runaway inflation?
Peter,
Sure.
Peter's first.
No, actually, this third question. Okay, all right, I'm happy to go. Inflation is a very real problem, and it's impacting not only small business owners, but it's impacting everybody on everyday life. From gas prices to the price of milk to the price of eggs. It is something that is incredibly difficult. The God's honest truth is outside of a gas tax that was passed well before I was ever in the legislature. There is very little that the state government can do to control inflation. Any politician who says that a state legislator in Utah or Idaho or Pennsylvania or New York is going to be able to reduce inflation is just not being accurate. What we can do is change the regulatory environment and continue to work with our small businesses to fit their specific needs. I'll give you an example. We have a manufacturing center over on South 10th Street. It's called the Bridgeworks Enterprise. And I've worked with multiple small businesses up there to change regulations that in one particular case allowed this business to triple their hiring. It's a distillery. They make mead, and if you've ever had it, it's a thing. I don't quite understand it, but it's a thing, and they're great guys. And they needed a regulatory change in order to sell more of their product. I was able to work with my colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle to get this regulatory change made, which tripled the number of employees that they had. They were able to sell their product more. For a state legislator to say that they're going to be able to affect global economics is just not accurate. But what you can be is present, you can listen, and you can work with those individual business owners to make sure that they get what they need.
All right, Peter is absolutely right. At the state level, it's very hard to take care of the inflation. There's two things that cause inflation mostly. One is fuel costs, because everything you own in your life comes in a truck. So if fuel prices go up, everything you buy is going up. It's the plain fact. The other thing is wage increases. I mentioned it earlier. Because people aren't working, you have to keep increasing how much you're paying people, and by paying people more, it increases the cost also. So to help counter wage increases, I would like to have high schools promoting trade skills, skilled trades for our schools, our electricians, plumbers, roofers, HVAC, even truck drivers. I would like to see that promoted heavily in our schools because they can do well, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year easily in those trades. And then I would also like to see us promote first responders, firefighters, police, EMS, healthcare workers. We need those too, and we're very short supply in all those. In the borough of Emmaus, it's very hard to find a police officer now, and we're a very respected police department in the Lehigh Valley. And not everyone's meant to go to college. I mean, we all know what you have to go to college for. If you want to be a teacher, accountants, lawyers, engineers, doctors, we all know you have to go to college to get a degree to be able to do those jobs. But not everybody has to take on college debt for those other jobs that I mentioned.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ladies.
You guys did awesome. Thank you so much.
SB 106, passed by the General Assembly in July, states the following, quote, "The PA Constitution does not grant the right to taxpayer-funded abortion or any other right relating to abortion," unquote. Do you support or oppose this amendment to the Pennsylvania Constitution?
Yes, but it doesn't stop abortions. You can still have an abortion. It's just not going to be paid by the taxpayers. So yes, I support that.
Thank you. Peter?
Where to begin? Fun fact, abortions aren't funded by taxpayers already. So I am a very proud pro-choice legislator. In 2014, I was endorsed by Planned Parenthood for the first time, and I've been endorsed by Planned Parenthood each and every election ever since then. Because outside of the relationship that you have with your children or your spouse or your parents, and outside of the relationship that you have with other loved ones in your family, the two most important relationships that a person has is with their faith, if that applies, and with their doctor. In neither of those places should State Representative Pete Schweyer be in the middle of that damn conversation. Not once should we be in the middle of that conversation. I should not tell you how to worship. I should also not tell you what to do with your doctor. This is something I'm an Allentown Central Catholic graduate. I worked for Sacred Heart Hospital. I went to the cathedral, which is only a few blocks from here. I was raised in a very Catholic household. And yet, throughout that time, my mother, who's practicing Catholic and also a pro-choice voter, has always told me that as much as her faith may dictate what she decides, that is not something that any of us should be putting on anybody else. I voted against House Bill 106, or the Resolution 106. It is a disgrace. It was also put on the ballot predominantly in the primary election to make sure less people voted. And I will continue to oppose any efforts for the state legislature to get in the middle of a woman and her right to choose.
Look at this first question.
Yes?
It is, throughout Pennsylvania, and especially in the Lehigh Valley, we have seen an increase in deaths by shootings. With government, communities, and municipalities working together, how can we best address the increased deaths by shootings in our communities? And what are some of the specific steps you would like to see implemented to reduce the number of deaths by guns?
We only have 60 seconds, which is not nearly enough time to have a 90 seconds, thank you. Still not enough time to have such a conversation about such a thing. On my 40th birthday, I got a phone call from a police officer who I happened to graduate high school with, and he asked me where I was, and I was actually in Camden at the aquarium with my family, and he told me there was a homicide across the street. A woman was murdered by her domestic partner by an AR-15. A couple months earlier was the Deja Vu shooting, the largest mass shooting in Allentown history. I visited multiple victims shortly thereafter to have conversations with them. But the most horrific issuance of gun violence that I have seen was a young woman by the name of Sandra Yohe, who was gunned down behind Jackson Elementary School. This one particularly hit home, even more so than visiting the victims of the Deja Vu shooting or the shooting across the street, because her brother Ryan was a kid that had coached in baseball. And the day that her life was taken from us, he came to my field, and all we could do is just hold on to him. If you've lived anywhere in the Lehigh Valley, this is not just an Allentown problem. You have been touched by gun violence in your life. I have a strong relationship with the Allentown Police Department. I don't agree with everything they do, but I have a strong relationship with them, and I will continue to do so. The questions that we had about mental health work that we discussed earlier, absolutely we need to continue to invest in it. Third, we need to have continued good quality community relations and work with the organizations that are doing anti-violence crime. And finally, we need to put a stop to the proliferation of guns in our community.
Thank you. Brent?
All right, 3 things. If there's violent criminals, you need to put them in jail so they're not on the street creating more violent crimes. That's the first thing. Second thing, there's mental problems for people that need help, and there's not enough funding for that. And I truly believe we need to take care of this issue, because there is people seeking help, and there's just not enough people to give it. And we need to have more funding for mental health. And thirdly, drug addiction is a huge problem right now. Everybody sees it in the news, the deaths and the issues with the fentanyl and the other issues. We need to have more places where these people can go if they want to become clean. And anybody who follows this issue in the newspaper knows there's not enough facilities for people to try to get clean. I think if you take those three issues, that will help with the crime issue.
I think I'll combine these two questions first. And do you support term limits? Wait, there's another part. If you lose the election, are you going to accept the outcome?
Well, I'll answer the second one first. Yes, absolutely. I mean, to me, that's nonsense, actually. But the term limits, yes, I support term limits, and I myself will only do 4 years and go home to my wife and let someone else take a turn. I don't want to make a career out of it. And I signed a pledge stating that I support term limits, not just for myself, but I would vote for term limits. So.
Thank you.
Just like I support somebody's right to run for borough council 6 straight terms and sit there for to be elected official for 25 years representing your hometown, I support a legislator's right or any individual's right to run for office as frequently as they choose to. Because every 2 years, we have a remarkable opportunity to sit in front of folks like you and say, hey, do you like the job I'm doing? Do you agree with my vision? No? Cool, kick me out. That's fine, that's your right. That is your vote, not the legislator's job. And as somebody who's been an 8-year elected official in Harrisburg, 14 years total, who's been a staff member for 3 different members of the General Assembly, in effect, what happens if you support term limits is you empower staff and you empower lobbyists to do more. Lastly, since I've been a state representative, we've had about a 75% turnover in the Pennsylvania General Assembly. That means in 8 years, 3 out of every 4 people that I served with no longer serve with me. Term limits are unnecessary because in our Constitution, we have something called elections. Now, with regard to will I accept the election outcome, the answer is unequivocally yes. A couple of years ago, I was in the middle of a very tight primary election. I won my primary by 53 votes. And 3 days before the vote was certified, I had already written my concession speech. That's not something that I tell a lot of people. It was not a fun thing to do. But I was prepared to accept the will of the voters. And that is something that everybody needs to be able to do. Anytime you raise your hand and swore an oath to the Constitution, you better be prepared to accept the will of the voters.
Thank you. Peter, you'll get this question.
Yes, ma'am.
For representatives, well, this is not for you, this is for both candidates. Allentown has a serious affordable housing crisis. Rents are very high, over 1,000 homeless ASD school district students. What can you, as our state representative, do to address this housing crisis if you were elected?
Housing is a fundamental issue. First of all, housing is a fundamental human right, and it's something that I strongly believe. Again, I mentioned earlier, I lived in 9 places by the time I was 18 years old. That is housing insecurity. Homelessness and housing insecurity takes many different forms. From the kid that's sleeping on grandma's couch one week, and another week is with a cousin, and a week after that might be reunited with a parent, to the person who's literally sleeping at one of the homeless camps over by Little Lehigh. Those are real life issues that are impacting folks on a regular basis. Just recently, I worked with Republican Pat Brown and our past mayor, Ray O'Connell, to secure millions of dollars more for the renovation of Little Lehigh Manor. Little Lehigh Manor is getting not only a brand new facelift and brand new housing there, but we're gonna add something like 100 additional units of housing there to make sure that folks have stable and secure housing. 100 units is not gonna solve our problem by any stretch of imagination. I've partnered with Ripple Community over off of 13th Street with what they're attempting to do in terms of building more affordable housing in the old Allentown section of town. I've actually met with officials in Emmaus that are worried about affordable housing, and offered them some of the insight that I've had as somebody who's been on the board of directors for Alliance of Building Communities and others. This is a real issue. It's going to take all of us, and it's going to take not one solution, but many different solutions to make sure that we're addressing the various concerns that lead to homelessness.
I heard this issue a lot going door to door, and it's a real issue, and people coming from New York and New Jersey are shooting our housing costs way above where it should be, including rentals. And it's not going to change overnight. It's not something you can just snap your fingers and it's done. But there's issues that are hurting people right now, and school property taxes are one. That's the number one issue I'm actually getting when I go door to door. And we need to increase the income level to qualify for rent rebates and property tax rebates. It hasn't been increased in a long time, and it needs to be, once it's set, it needs to be set to inflation so that it increases every year. The rates are so low that very few people qualify. There's so many people on Social Security that are struggling to keep their house. I heard that so many times, and it's sad to hear. And that's one thing that I think we can do to help people stay in their homes now. The housing issue, that's supply and demand. And unfortunately, we don't have the supply right now in the Lehigh Valley. We need to increase the supply. I know there's 144 units being built in Emmaus. That's going to help somewhat. And we have some homes being built, I believe.
From the audience. Brent, you'll get the first shot at this. You were the last one. From the audience. In light of our heating climate and the floods, droughts, hurricanes, so many in our country we're experiencing, what measures currently up in the Pennsylvania legislature would you support to address the heating up climate?
Well, this is an environmental question. I just want to tell you, for the 25 years that I've been on the Borough Council, I just want to tell you some of the things that the Borough of Emmaus has done. We were the very first in the Lehigh Valley to do curbside recycling. First borough, that is. We're very first in the Lehigh Valley. We do electronic recycling in the Borough of Emmaus right now, monthly. Nobody does that. We have hazardous household waste pickup in the Borough of Emmaus, or not pickup, drop off, every other year. Nobody does that in the Lehigh Valley. In fact, Lehigh County, you're lucky if they do it every other year. We do that on a regular basis. We converted all our street lights to LED. First in the valley to put a riparian buffer down in our community park along Liberts Creek. We recycle our Christmas trees. We have a street planning plan. We have an organic community garden. We're redoing our Borough Hall and Central Station, retrofitting it for everything that's current as far as efficiency. And our compost center was one of the very first in the Lehigh Valley also, and I'm very proud of Emmaus and being a leader in those topics, and I would really like to see other communities do what we do.
First, I want to commend Brent. That is an exceptional environmental record that the Borough of Emmaus should be absolutely proud of. And it's, in Allentown, I would argue, has had an exceptionally strong EAC and some others. But we're not here to debate, which municipality is doing a better job of providing options for citizens to impact their reduce their carbon footprint or doing anything else. We're talking about a statewide policy. And when you're a legislator, you get assigned to committees. It's just one of the things that happens. And I'm the Democratic chair of utilities. It's a subcommittee. I'm Democratic subcommittee chair of utilities. And whether we're talking about community solar, which I touched upon earlier, low impact hydro. There are developers that are looking to take the old Lehigh Canal and the old canals along the Delaware River and put hydroelectric plants in there. They just need a small regulatory change. I wrote the legislation to do so, and we're continuing to work with the majority party to try to move that through as a pilot program. In addition to that, something that we're going to need to look at, we're going to have to make some tough choices. And we're going to have to make some tough choices that aren't perfect. We are past the point of having perfect choices to reduce our carbon emissions and reduce greenhouse gases in Pennsylvania. We are going to have to do a better job of capping the methane coming out of our natural gas wells, but also we're going to have to look to new technologies. Things like there are small little nuclear plants that are cropping up in very, very progressive, environmentally friendly states like Washington that we're going to need to look at here. So I look forward to continuing the conversation. This is a much bigger issue than again 90 seconds will allow.
Thank you. You want to answer? Okay. This is also from the audience. School funding, school choice. Do you support school funding that goes to the student rather than to the district, like recently passed in Arizona? Peter.
I don't plan on doing anything like Arizona does. Period, full stop. I'm just going to start right there. I'm going to look to what's most important for the citizens of Pennsylvania. And in Pennsylvania, we actually have quite a bit of school choice. People can go to charter schools if they choose to. There are programs like the Educational Improvement Tax Credit Program that allows folks to choose to go to a private school or a Catholic school or other parochial school. So we have mechanisms in place to allow parents to make decisions. In the Allentown School District, for example, we have 17,000 kids in the district and about 6,500 go to charter schools. So we have quite a bit of school choice. That question is an unfair one. It's just a patently unfair framing of a question. The real question is, how are we going to pay for education in Pennsylvania? And are we willing to gut public education in order to send to line the pockets of private corporations, religious organizations that run these other schools? And the answer is no. I'm not going to pull money away from the poorest kids in Pennsylvania, kids who live at 9th and Tillman Street, so that somebody else has access to a private school. I'm not going to do that. So if we want to have an open and honest conversation about funding our charters better, about funding things like the Educational Improvement Tax Credit, while not depriving the overwhelming majority of children who go to public schools, I'm open to that conversation. But until we have a real conversation that understands that this is a false narrative, then I'm not interested in having it.
Thank you.
Yes, there's 5 ways to educate your kids. You have public schools, private schools, charter schools, cyber schools, and homeschooling. And as a parent, you have a choice, but some parents don't have the option of some of those choices because they don't have money. A lot of the kids that Peter just mentioned could never go to a private school. So with vouchers, that would give them that option. Now, I'm not 100% in favor of vouchers at this point. There's 50 states in this country, and we can look at each state and see what's working and what's not working. Arizona just passed this law. Let's see if it works. Let's give it a year or two, see if it works. Suppose it's successful. Do you want to tune it out because it's another state? I don't. I want to learn from other states what works and doesn't work. The other issue, public funding for schools, I support more funding for schools. It will take care of 2 issues. They have so many regulations with special ed and testing and other regulations that are so expensive that they don't get funded for. I believe they should be funded for. And it will take care of 2 things. The funding for having those mandates, and the other issue is property taxes. If we fund the schools more, theoretically, property taxes would level off for a few years at least. If not, some would come down. Of course, that depends on 500 individual school boards that have their own, budgets. So some have building projects, some don't. Thank you.
Thank you. This from the audience is about energy. Is the state doing enough to produce energy resources during this time of low supply?
I'm sorry, what was it?
Is the state doing enough to produce energy resources during this time of low supply?
Well, I think we could always do more with our fracking in Pennsylvania. It's a huge business in the northern tier of Pennsylvania. There are new technologies coming out for capturing methane that Pete mentioned earlier. They're getting to a point where they can be very environmentally friendly as far as the actual drilling part. The other part is transferring it. But if we can increase that, that would help with heating costs and electric costs, because we are converting a lot of our electric plants from coal burning to natural gas. And it's a cleaner burn, and it's supposedly cheaper, but when you don't have enough of it, the costs are going up for that too. So your electric prices go up when we don't, I do think we could get more with our fracking.
The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania generates about 120% of the electricity that we need, making us an energy exporter. Let me just say that again. Pennsylvania sells more electricity and sells more energy products than we can possibly consume. So if you believe in just basic economics, if we're making more than we need, it is helping to reduce our own costs, but it's also creating jobs, and it's creating opportunities for Pennsylvanians from Erie to Philadelphia and all points in between. Last week I visited a coal-fired power plant. Now, it wasn't one of the traditional ones where you're mining fresh coal and sticking it in. This was a waste coal power plant. Literally, if I had my Vans on that I was wearing earlier, you'd see the coal dust that was around them. We have a remarkable electricity and energy portfolio in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Something that we should be proud of. But there's a vast difference between saying we should be drilling in the middle of the Delaware River, and are we doing enough to incentivize our energy development? Pennsylvania has supported, we now have one online, we're going to have a second manufacturing plant that's directly tied to natural gas. One's the cracker plant out in Beaver County. There's going to be one that's being built up outside of Scranton. We are doing a tremendous amount in terms of energy development, but we do need to transition and continue to transition away from just simply burning fossil fuels. As I mentioned before, solar we could do, hydro, and nuclear industry is something that we need to continue to invest in.
Thank you. This will be the last question. It's a pretty simple one. Is it time to abolish the Liquor Control Board?
No. Folks, like everything else, we sometimes just simply have a math problem. The Liquor Control Board, the private sales of spirits, generates $125 million a year net benefit to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Well, wants a tax increase to cover that cost. For the legacy employees that have worked at the liquor stores since Prohibition, you know the liquor stores cover all the retirement costs? That ain't your income tax. That ain't your sales tax. That's the dude down the corner that just bought a bottle of Tito's. That's how we're paying for this stuff. Liquor enforcement in Pennsylvania, the folks that make sure that 19-year-old kids aren't sneaking into a bar and drinking, that's paid for by that same dude who just bought that same bottle of Tito's. So unless we want to give up the financial security that we have and start paying for all of those things, then great, it's a great plan. But if you fundamentally believe that we have a role and responsibility to be fiscally responsible in Pennsylvania, by the way, you already pay a 6% sales tax and an 18% Johnstown flood tax, stupid name, it is what it is, on that bottle of liquor. And yet, comparatively speaking, liquor is about the same price in Pennsylvania as it is everywhere else. Furthermore, the LCB creates jobs. I was on the phone today with a guy by the name of Russell Fletcher, who's building a massive manufacturing plant over on the east side of Allentown at the old Treat site. And the reason why he's able to do it is he just sold $100,000 to the Liquor Control Board. It sounds great, the math ain't there.
Yes, I support abolishing it. And it's not the government's job to create jobs for government workers. Those same jobs will be done in the private sector. They're going to be operated by people that own those businesses, that pay taxes. They're going to pay employees. They're not going to be working for the government. If there's 49 states, or 48 I believe, that don't have government-run liquor stores, there's a reason why. All right, so there's only, I believe, one other state that has a liquor control board like Pennsylvania. I just agree with abolishing it.
Thank you. Well, and now it's time for the closing statements, and Peter, you'll give the first closing statement. You
Thank you.
have 2 minutes. Make it 3. We'll give you 3 minutes.
Wow.
Address some things that you haven't been asked already.
So again, I want to start by thanking the Lehigh Valley Active Life. I want to thank Rick Doherty, their executive director, Mary, you, and all of your colleagues from the league, thank you so very much for putting this on. And lastly, I want to thank everybody in this room. I believe very strongly that politicians that simply hide behind a keyboard or never out there, not engaging with folks, not having honest conversations, and frankly, sometimes honestly disagreeing with people, means that that person is not actually living up to their responsibility to their community. In my 8 years as a legislator, I'm incredibly proud of not only the fact that we have all this development downtown, but the incredible investment that we've had in our public schools. But that's not just investment for the sake of investment. That's investment because what we're doing is we're targeting and improving the lives of individuals in our city. And a good legislator is one that is out there in public and listens and comes up with creative solutions. I'll give you an example. College costs are high. I'm a first-generation college student, and I understand how difficult it is for that person who doesn't even understand what a college visit looks like, let alone has an idea of how they're going to pay for it. I know what that feels like, because that was me many years ago, but that was me. And so having an open and honest conversation, being willing to challenge power. I challenged the Chancellor of Paschy, which doesn't mean anything to you, but the guy that runs all of our state schools, and I said to him twofold. Number one, you are not helping kids of color get into your schools. Your own admission rates look at that. And number two, you're not helping poor kids get into school, and you're the cheapest schools in here, and nobody's choosing you. Why is that? He gave me all kinds of solutions and arguments, and talked around the issue, and it was garbage. But the president of Bloomsburg University, Bashir Hanna, who grew up on the east side of Allentown, by the way, came up to me and said, I can't say this in public, but you're absolutely right. We are not doing enough, but we can do more. Skip ahead 6 months later, the Allentown School District now has a program with Bloomsburg. They already had the Husky to Husky program, but it's been dramatically expanded, where kids in Allentown, so long as they meet a minimum GPA, are able to go to Bloomsburg University. They get priority enrollment, they get added tuition assistance, and to boot, for you folks, your parents are able to visit easier. They run buses back and forth. So that mom and dad who are worried about sending their kid off to college for the first time has that comfort level that they can just hop on a bus and come home if they need to. It's only an hour and a half away. This got Kutztown University so mad that we were biting into their market share, they upped their game, which got East Stroudsburg University to up their game. A good legislator is one that's able to find creative solutions, that starts by listening to their constituents, being unafraid to come up with different ways to go about doing it, and challenge power. I appreciate the opportunity to have served the folks of the 22nd and now 134th District, and look forward to continuing to do so.
I don't care.
It was after opening and closing statements, he said, so.
Save it for the end.
I too would like to thank the League of Women Voters again, and thank you, the crowd, for coming out tonight. You know, everybody's busy, and I appreciate taking the time to actually learn the issues. In closing, I think we should take care of what we have. Our roads, our bridges, our schools, our nursing homes, our state police, our parks. Anything the state funds, let's fund it properly before we spend another cent, because we're not taking care of what we have in the state. I'll give you an example of that. The budget that was just passed, they have $56,000 for 3 new state parks. 3 state parks, they don't own the land, they don't have the infrastructure put in yet, they don't have the management that's going to run that, and they have to maintain it. $56 million for 3 state parks. Meanwhile, we have Beltsville Dam that shuts down every year because they don't have the infrastructure. That's a perfect example of what I'm saying. Let's take care of what we have before we spend another cent. I will not take a taxpayer-funded pension. I will fund my own retirement. I don't think taxpayers should pay for politicians' retirements. It shouldn't be a career anyhow. They get paid enough they can fund their own retirement. Almost $100,000 the state legislature gets, and then you're going to give them a pension on top of that? I don't think so. It shouldn't be a career anyhow, which leads me to term limits. I support term limits. I signed a pledge saying I would. I myself, I'll do 4 years. I'm putting a term limit on myself. I just want to take care of what we have. I'll go home to my wife, let somebody else take a turn. She has stuff for me to do. I do not want to be a career politician in Harrisburg. The bill that supports independents voting in primaries, I totally support that 100% and will vote for it. I think Built-in automatic pay raises for politicians should be eliminated. They should be forced to vote on pay raises on a yearly basis and not have a built-in pay increase. I think any funding to make government more efficient is money well spent. And if there's one bill I could pass, it would be a bill requiring financial literacy to graduate high school. 19 states require this now. Ohio is the last one that implemented it. Learning how a mortgage works, a car loan, savings interest, compound interest, budgeting, even investing in your retirement of 401s and IRAs is probably the most important thing you can teach a student how to live their life and finances. Next to reading. That reading is the biggest thing you can teach a kid to get out of poverty. And with that being said, if there's 99 things I disagree with somebody on, there's one thing I want to find the one thing that we agree on. I don't want to be the person that's fighting all the time. I want to be the person that brings people together. With that, I hope you appreciated what we both said tonight, and I'd like to ask for your support. Thank you.
We hope you were able to gain some additional knowledge about these candidates tonight. And if you want to find out all the election information you need for next month, go to our voters guide, vote411.org, plug in your address. There you can register to vote, change your registration, apply for a mail-in ballot, and find information about all the candidates on your ballot. From senator down to the state representatives. It's also a national program, so if you have friends in other states, family in other states, they can also go to Vote 411. Plug in their address, they'll see who's on the ballot. And be aware that your County Board of Elections has to receive these applications by October 24th, the registration applications, mail-in ballot applications by November 1st, and they have to be in their office by that date, no postmarks, they have to be in their hands. So I think I'll leave you with a quote from Will Rogers. Even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. Everybody go vote. We thank you all for your attention this evening. Most of all, thank the candidates for participating.
Thank you so very much.